I'd like to call this meeting to order, 11:22, facilities on today, the 21st. Motion to approve of the meeting minutes prior. Do I have a motion to approve the prior minutes? Mr. Stroud, is there a second? Mr. McDivitt, all in favor of approving those?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, we're going to go right into the buildings and grounds agenda. And I will let Mr. Hajos take it over from here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item we have on the agenda on page 2 is a request to enter into a contract for solid waste, medical waste, and recycling disposal services for the county. This is not one for the towns, this is strictly for the county and all the facilities in the county. Countryside Human Services Building here at the county center. And you can see that the tab sheets are attached. It won't be with one vendor, it'll be with different vendors. I thought the sheets were highlighted, apparently they're not. But it's the lowest responsive bidder on each one for each site.
Discussion.
Can you go through, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I can't see any highlighting.
I just said, Claudia, it didn't come through.
So which ones are which? What are we doing?
But
Can you just walk through it?
If I can walk through it if you like. We'll go through the first one for 1A Public Health. You'll see that Advo Waste Medical and Stericycle were the two bidders for there, and Advo Waste Recyclable or Medical was the lowest bidder. You want me to do each one of those down the line?
No, I see it now, but I am concerned, why do we have only the sheriff's offices doing recyclables? Does that mean none of the other sites actually have recyclables?
We do recycle through DPW as well. We do all the battery recycling. We don't do cardboard or any of that recycling.
We actually do.
We do?
Yeah.
Well, you have the compactor for the cardboard here at the municipal center, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Wells.
Mr. Chairman, similar to the question I asked earlier, there's a chain of custody, especially for this infectious waste and the like. We audit that? Do we?
Sorry, what?
Do we audit the chain of custody for this material to make sure we know where it's going and it's disposed of properly?
We don't do anything in-house. Public health, I'm sure, well, I'm not sure. Public health handles all the medical recycling and so on. You know, if there is auditing, I would think it would go to.
And if I may, then can I request that we get clarification for that, you know, before the next time we meet and before these bids are released? So I think it's important to understand the chain of custody.
The bid's already released. We already have the bid in.
Let.
It's let already,
Before it's let?
before we award.
Before we award?
This
Thank
is
you.
the request to enter into contracts with each one of the individual low bidders.
Okay, now, I didn't see the bid or the
tab
the
sheet.
bid package.
The tab sheet.
I see the bid, the tab sheet, I see this. Did we specify that there's a chain of command or a chain of custody for this material so that we know where it's going?
I will review that. I'm not sure that there is, but I'm sure that we can have the county attorneys put something in the contract.
Okay.
Thank you. Further discussion. Ms. Bramer?
I'm going to harp on this again because of the just feeling like we don't have a handle on what's happening with our waste throughout the county and where it goes from the town sites. But this is the county stuff, so we should have a better handle on what we're doing with our solid waste and where it's going and why do we not have better recycling throughout the county. I mean, we have these little blue bins up here. Are you telling me they go to the trash?
No, they don't. No, don't we
No,
have...
if you look at the first item on the first page, loading dock, pick up and disposal of an 8 cubic yard cardboard container. That's recycling for the municipal center cardboard.
That's just cardboard.
Right. We also recycle cans and bottles. We recycle newspaper. We shred most of our paper, and that's recycled through the county. Our own truck, DPW truck, picks that up and delivers I'm not sure where he takes that to, Kevin, maybe you can help me with that, but it's...
I believe it's Perkins.
I believe it's Perkins also. But we have recycle bins all over the municipal center and our own buildings that we pick up in-house and bring to various containers, and then those containers are brought by DPW trucks to disposal sites.
Is that, Ms. Bramer, is that
Is that all
satisfied?
spelled out in our solid waste management plan?
It is, and as well as all the towns are as well.
Okay.
Mr. Strauss, do you have a question?
Just to confirm, Kevin, so for the Site 4, Bolton Meal Site, that's going to be going to County Waste. And the Floyd Bennett Memorial, this is going to be no builder to Pella.
So it's correct.
For food, going to go to Waste Management, no bidder.
That's correct.
And then the tires will go to County Waste, the
Right.
just so I understand. Okay, thank you.
That's correct.
Do you need a resolution?
I need a motion now to approve this resolution unless there's any other discussion. Mr. Strauss on the motion, second by Ms. Bramer.
I just have another comment. You know, the reason why I bring up this chain of custody is because when I was looking at recycling a couple of months ago, I believe that there was at least one of these bidders that doesn't offer recycling for their residential customers, even though, you know, the impression is that they do. So that's why I'm looking for that chain of custody. I just want to make sure that these guys are actually taking our recycled material and getting it to somewhere so it can be recycled instead of just mixing it with the regular trash. That's it. I'm ready to approve.
Okay. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Ms. Bramer, before I call the question, do you have
Yes,
one more
thank-
comment?
Well, Supervisor Stroud went over the back side. Can we just go over the front side so we know who's getting which one?
For public health, it would be ADVO.
Okay.
For the loading dock, Waste Management. For the Sheriff's Office, it would be ADVO. For the Sheriff's Office Site 2B, that would be County Waste. For the Sheriff's Office recyclables, it looks to be County Waste as well. For Countryside Adult Home, it looks to be ADVO. For Site 3, for Site 3B, it looks to be County Waste and Recycling.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed.
The next item that we have on the agenda is referral pending items. I believe at last committee meeting, we discussed the possibility of extending the lease with D&G on a short-term basis, but possibly putting stipulations in the contract to make sure that he's abiding by what we want him to do, whether it's cleanliness or fixing equipment out there or what it may be. I don't think we've done anything with the county attorney's office yet. I actually don't necessarily believe that the committee voted on what they really wanted to do. So we're still at that point right now of where we want to move forward with this.
Okay, discussion on this. Does anyone have any opinions? We had a lot of different opinions last time. So.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm just looking to see if we can get some kind of nod from the committee moving forward one way or another. Right?
what
The sale
direction?
was offered, it was, you know, there was some opposition. We're still with a, what I believe to be a low lease payment from the current leasee or leaseor or whatever one that is. But I believe there's some money being left on the table. There's also some issues with the cleanliness and adherence to the contract. So, you know, if we're not going to sell it, we should be moving forward with some type of renegotiation with the current tenant. But I'd
Okay.
just like to get a sense.
Are you recommending a motion to...
I don't think it requires a motion. I'm just like to hear from other committee members to where they'd like to go with this.
Okay, other committee members? Ms. Bramer, you had your hand up first, and then Mr.
Thanks.
Strow afterwards.
I'm open to renegotiating the contract if I think he said he could pay more, and to get him to abide by additional conditions, and I would like us to move forward with the subdivision process. I don't know where that got left off, but I think that we need to move forward with that so we have a clear picture of what we're actually trying to lease or sell.
Okay, Mr. Strow, you were next, and then Mr. Diamond after that.
I would favor also negotiating extension of terms with D&G. I understand that they're willing to pay a greater monthly rent, and I also agree that we could put wordage in our lease agreement with them that the exterior and maybe perhaps the interior needs to be of certain standards, cleanliness and dust-freeness and so forth. But I'd be in favor of renegotiating the bid with D&G. I just don't think that we are ready to sell it at this time. We don't even, you make a declaration for declaring that it's surplus property when you don't even know exactly what you're talking about in the subdivision that's not taking place. You know that it has environmental issues and factors, and those questions and concerns have not come anywhere close to being addressed. The other thing is yes, it's publicly owned property, and you should not allow it to go less than its value, and you do need an appraisal. And I've been told many times as the town does business and looks to sell property, yes, it does declare it surplus, and then it has to go at an appraised value. It can't sell it for less, because it is publicly owned property. And there are just so many other question marks and issues with releasing this piece of property at this time. I think the common sense thing is to renegotiate the lease with D&G, at least for now.
Mr. Diamond.
I think, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Being part of that initial process in discussing this at great length about options, I've come to the conclusion at this point that in the best interest of the county, that Mr. Perkins also has an interest that we send out another RFP to entertain what options are there and look at who the best bidder is that would like to lease that property on a long-term basis. I know Supervisor Stroud talked about subdividing in the property. That's very easily done to be able to subdivide the property, determine what the county wants to maintain. That process would have to go and thrown into the town of Queensbury. Also, I think Supervisor Wild brought up all of the easements that came and restrictions. All of those easements are transferable. There was absolutely no doubt in my mind if the county really wanted to take an interest in selling that property, all of that money could have been conveyed all of those easements could have been conveyed to the next owner. And it was ironic that we had a last-minute inquiry, and I got to say that was due diligence because the company that expressed interest also read in the newspaper what the value that we were suggesting to sell it at. So we kind of compromised our position. We spent an awful lot of time the entire last year on this, and it doesn't seem to be a lot of willingness of this committee to transfer or sell the property. However, we do have another interested party that was paying significantly more money many years ago to lease that property. And he's got a willingness to lease the property again, and he also has his other property on the market on Corinth Road, which was explained today through the EDC board, that he's looking to market. So let's see who's out there. You know, let's see what D&G comes with proposal, and let's see who else is out there who's interested in leasing the property. I think that the rate that we have continued on with this particular tenant for many years is below scale.
Ms. Bramer?
Thanks. I want to touch on the easements and liability to the county. I looked at that too, and I don't see why we couldn't transfer that to the next person. And typically, we don't like to take on liability of this nature, so getting rid of it seems like something that we would want to do.
Mr. Sokol?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, Mike, you've done a lot of legwork on this, and the board appreciates all that. But I would like to know what your thoughts are, seeing that you have been heavily involved in, I mean, you must have an idea of where you would like to see this go.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind,
Go ahead.
I just look at the value that we can draw out of that property versus the obligations that we have. And the obligations is hundreds of thousands of dollars of new roof and repairs. And the other obligation is our emergency management equipment that's being stored in what some could argue is a environment that could destroy that equipment. Because there's a lot of dust. It's the nature of the beast of the recycling business, but we have very expensive equipment that's being housed in an environment that OSHA has described as potentially explosive, with an explosive hazard. My sense, and again, it's just mine, if we get a reasonable offer, we should take it and sell it and get ourselves out of the obligation of dealing with repairs. Environmental issues are transferable potentially to the next buyer. My sense is if we can sell it and get a good price, we should do it.
Can I
Mr.
follow up
Sokol,
with-
follow up?
So, all that well and good, but I believe I brought that up as well. I would, my interest was to sell, but I believe Supervisor Stroud, did you not mention that we needed to get, the bid was below the assessed value or something?
Well, we did.
So-
We've received, since that conversation, we've received an appraisal at $600 and some odd thousand. So, and I understand that there might be an interested party at that amount.
Okay.
But I certainly think that selling at $400,000, which is below the appraised value, is not fair to the public
Right.
owners.
Right.
So,
Okay. Ms. Bramer and then Mr. McDevitt.
Thanks. Who paid for that appraisal and how much did it cost?
It cost us $2,500, and it was paid for out of DPW, or out of facilities budget, out of contracts.
2,500, okay.
Mr. McDevitt.
Just very briefly, I have no issue with renting, leasing this property. It's been said a couple of times in this meeting that environmental issues are transferable. Show me that. Show me that in writing. Give me a real thick legal opinion that supports that statement.
Have you read the document?
I have not, no, because I'm not...
It's very clear in the document that the environmental issues are transferable after reading it.
That is not what some attorneys have told me, Jack. No. Legal opinion.
Oh, okay, Ms. Bramer.
Well, there's a difference between transferring the easements and the problems that are on the site already and the liability that we've already taken on. We can't get rid of the liability that we've already taken on. We took it on, but we can pass on future liability if we get rid of the property.
Most of the environmental issues have been they have been encapsulated over time, where they've said, DEC has said that these aren't real environmental issues. However, it's the easements that were raised by Supervisor Stroud, and it certainly is transferable.
Can we get a letter from the DEC stating that everything's fine?
What I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask for a show of hands. I'm going to ask two questions. I'm trying to get a handle on this because we seem like we have a lot of different direction. The first question is going to be, and I just need a show of hands, whether we want to go into negotiation to extend the current lease while we consider what our future plans are. So for those who are in favor of extending the current lease month by month with parameters, and we'll have the county attorney's office draw up the parameters and so forth before we even vote on that. Do we have, by a show of hands, in favor of extending the current lease month by month with parameters? So, show of hands, please.
Yeah,
And then the other option's going to be the second question. Good question, Mr. Stroud. Second question is going to be, what will be the, by a show of hands, do we want to continue on the path of possibly selling the facility? And I'm open to a third question also.
Yeah.
Yes.
RFP to operate.
An RFP to operate option. So that would be part of the second question then. So those are the two questions. I'm going to ask, no specific order other than we'll ask the first question on the lease question. I just want to see what the flavor of this committee is.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, it might be just simpler than that. How many are supportive of a sale versus how many are just opposed to a sale? That's the big question right now, because if there's more members that are opposed to a sale, then we just renegotiate the lease.
Okay, well, I think that's what I was asking, but, so we'll ask the first question. How many are in favor of extending the current lease? By show of hands. 3, and I am 2, 4. Okay, so there's 4 currently, and that means 5. Mr. Loeb?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, would it not hold that if we're still looking to sell it, we would want to extend the current lease?
Correct.
I
So-
would agree to that.
Okay, all right, so let's ask that question. If we want to sell it, then are we in favor of just extending the current lease with continuing the negotiations and probably putting out an RFP, a second RFP? Or who's in favor of that?
That wasn't clear to me.
For sale or
For the sale,
Offer another RFP.
right. That was suggested by one of the members here to put out another RFP
For sale.
for sale.
Okay.
Correct, Kevin?
I didn't say sale.
No? Hang on here, hold on.
If I could, I think, and
We've,
I'll try to simplify as much as I can. I think what the chairman's trying to say is either we sell the property, which we'd have to go through the subdivision process, whatever else, pass on the easements to the next, but that's a sale. The next one would be to continue to lease with D&G right now and possibly renegotiate, get more money out of D&G, and put some more stipulations in his contract. And the third one, I think, the RFP is to put it out for a different operator to come in there and do recycling, not an RFP necessarily for sale, an RFP for a different recycling business to come in there and maybe get more money out of a new company coming in there.
okay, so those are 3 questions.
You can vote more than one.
I know. I can't remember what I voted for.
All right, so here's the question. Is the, by show of hands, do you want to sell the building, the property? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I'll probably say 8, okay. The will of the committee is they would like to sell the property. Okay, so then the next question is, does this committee want to extend the current lease and negotiate the current lease while we look into selling the property? Now, a show of hands on that, if you want to extend the current lease.
Yeah, why not?
I don't think we
Yeah,
have a choice.
that's what we'll bring it. Okay, so that's also the will of the board.
Hold
of
on,
the committee.
you would ask the third one, what's the-
Mr. Simpson, would you like to be recognized?
Well, you looked at me, I thought you were saying that. That's okay. Can I speak?
Yeah, sure.
Before we talk about the second one, the third one was whether we put an RFP out for another use. So if we continue with the lease agreement, why don't we just ask him to respond to our third question, which is the RFP? Don't get it's going to be hard to negotiate with a guy that you're going to have to say, well, we're going to put an RFP out for another use of this building.
Mhm.
So it might be better to
Just do the RFP.
just do the RFP, skip the second thing that you mentioned. My
Okay.
suggestion, that's all.
All right, let's, I'm going to take a vote now on putting out the RFP. Thank you, Mr. Simpson. All in favor of doing that
For RFP for sale or RFP for lease?
for,
Yeah, so I think we established that the committee wants to approach a sale, so in the meantime, what do we want?
sale?
Yeah, what do we want the interim lease to look like until we get to a sale?
You need a motion, probably.
I just need a show of hands because we haven't done a motion yet, so a show of hands that would be in favor of that? Okay, all right. So we're getting some clarity to the mud pie. I hope so too, Mike.
So-
This committee would like to put out an RFP.
Do we need a motion for that? No.
You can, it doesn't need a resolution, it's just you're directing the staff to do it.
Okay.
So then we'd like an RFP to renegotiate the lease.
No,
And-
no, a new,
a new lease RFP,
Right.
and we'd also like to pursue the
Some amendment.
subdivision of the property and another RFP for sale.
I'm fine with that. Is the committee fine with that? I don't think we can combine, Mike, I don't think we can combine the RFPs. We have to have separate RFPs.
No, separate RFPs, it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so we'll direct the county attorney to administrator to start digging into that mud pie. Yeah, Mr. Kramer?
Can we also direct staff to proceed with the subdivision process? Even if we don't do anything, it would be nice to have it subdivided now so we can have that flexibility later. If we don't start, we can't do anything.
Is it the will of the committee to do that?
Yes. When?
Show of hands, do you want our staff to looking into subdividing?
I
Okay.
thought we requested that before.
No. So yes, we,
We never got that far.
it's the will of the committee to look into subdividing. Okay. This mud pie, anything else, Kevin, on this?
I just want to clarify, because I think it'll fall a lot on DPW. I'm going to work with Julie and put an RFP for the sale of the property. But for us to do that, we have to go through the subdivision process.
Correct.
And then I'm going to work on an RFP for the operation of the facility, maybe a new operator in there. Is that correct?
That's
correct.
perceive it. That's how I perceive that. That's
And-
correct.
And Mr. Chairman, if you don't
Yep.
mind, if I can put one more on Kevin's plate, I did request Kevin to set up a time for me to be able to go through the site again, to do kind of like an inspection. That I can't do myself. But
Please don't go by yourself.
I would like to open it up to the committee members that they go themselves also, to truly see what this environment is all about. It's eye-opening. Right? We have a sense of what a recycling business is, but until you go around that building, go in that building, you won't have the sense of where we are. And I'd like to open that up.
Okay, Mr. Administrator, you have a question?
I do have a question. In terms of the RFP for operating in the interim while we look into a sale, is this committee looking to have any specific time frame, or are we looking to do a month-to-month time frame for a contract, at least month-to-month?
What's the will of the committee?
I would say open it up. They can reply to a month-to-month or a 6-month or a year.
Give them some options?
Yeah, give them some options.
Okay. Okay, now we're going to move into the court project update. Frank?
Phase 1 and 2 are substantially completed. Clark Patterson does not have a presence here anymore. We still are in contact with our project manager if needed. To my knowledge, the only thing we're waiting for now is some lock sets on the Sallyport area, which are security locks. There's a long lead time on them. But other than that, I think we've had turnover and training on phase 1 and 2.
Any questions for Mr. Morehouse? Yes, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Craig, what's been the experience so far with snow removal over there on the southern front?
It's not good.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
You have to use a small bucket, is that what you're?
We're using the snow blower on the John Deere tractor and the skid steer to get snow out to the gate area. As you know, we added 2 gates so that we can plow straight out from that area, but it's still, we have to pull the snow all the way from the north side to the south side and then push it out through the gate. Just maybe to throw a wrench in the works. Down the road, the court has been looking at a second Sallyport on the front of the building.
Really?
There's been some discussion that if that's not completely necessary, maybe we could put a roof over the Sallyport on the back. That roof was in there originally and it was taken off the original construction plan because of $1. So it's just something to think about. It would be a heck of a lot easier. But we're
Mr.
dealing
Hay,
with it.
I'm sorry, Frank, are you done? Okay, Mr. Hajos?
I just, real quickly, budget-wise on the project, as I've been directed all along by the chairman, on time and under budget. We're well ahead of time for the phase 1 and 2 project for the court. and we are still at this point under budget, not by a significant amount on $10.5 million, whatever it may have been. It's approximately $32,000 that we're under budget on the project. We have gone into phase 3, 4, and 5 doing design. We're working with Clark Patterson. We met with both the Supreme Court judges on phase 3, 4, and 5, and the next meeting is with the Commissioner of Jurors to decide if they're happy with the space, and then at that point we will discuss with Office of Court Administration on whether or not that sally port is necessary out front. We here don't feel it is, but if the Office of Court Administration wants it, I think unless this committee convinces otherwise of the board, they'll get whatever they want, and they did with the other part of the courthouse. No, we don't feel it's necessary. We feel there's other alternatives so that you don't have to haul prisoners through public hallways with other individuals. There are options. We just need to provide those options to them and get their buy-in on it.
That makes sense to me, that we don't need to be spending the money just because you guys did a good job of coming in under budget to spend the money to add these overhangs and so forth. If there's other options, common sense options to bring the prisoners through without being at harm to the public and so forth. So that makes common sense to me. Yes, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. The idea of putting a equal-sized sally port, you're talking about the east elevation of this building?
Right out front.
Yeah. I think if that could be avoided, that would be a desirable thing.
Yes, Kevin.
We asked Clark Patterson for some plan elevations because we were concerned with what it would look like as well. I know that a portion of it was supposed to be brick, that it would blend into the existing facade, but then there's another portion that looks like like you're in a boot camp or something, as it does look out back, and I don't think that, we're not in agreement that that's necessary, and especially it would be an eyesore for the front of the county.
Well, in addition, if I might, Mr. Chairman, in addition, we've got public there, children, but it wasn't designed for circulation. I'll stand corrected on that, but it seems to me there's a whole host of issues.
Well, thank you, and I think the board would probably be in concurrence with you that finding a more common sense solution without spending a lot of money just because it's there makes sense. Yeah, there you go. Okay, next on the item, we're going to have Mr. Brent McDivitt. If you'd go to the podium. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, right before Mr. McDivitt, service provider agreement. Go ahead.
Let me hit on it real quick. Siemens has a contract with the county. They've had a contract that expires in 2021. It was a 15-year contract when they did the energy savings and such for the county center. We have equipment. When the Human Services building was designed, it was designed with that equipment in mind. It is a computer monitoring system that Siemens does, as well as the new courthouse has that same equipment in it as well. We never had an agreement in place for Siemens to do any of the work on the courthouse or the Human Services building. A lot of the minor things that have come up, we've taken care of ourselves, but they still monitor it for us. Now, I know we've had issues in the past with Siemens as far as the geothermal field out back or the cogeneration plant. I can't emphasize enough, this is not the same Siemens. These are the tech guys that come out to help us with our heating system and air conditioning system. They do a phenomenal job. They help us a lot of times without even charging us for it. But I need to get a service provider agreement in place so that we can have them do the work at the Human Services building if something comes up, or at the, and it shouldn't require a motion, because we're thinking it's not going to be over $20,000 a year. We don't even think it'll come close to that. It's just a term agreement in case something comes up.
Okay. So no motion is needed for that. It's under the $20,000. Okay. Any discussion on that? Any further? Okay. We'll move right along now to Mr. McDivitt. He's requested some time. I hope, unfortunately we're running late, but I want to make sure we get him in here. He's requested some time to talk about the charging stations at possibly at the county center. So, Mr. McDivitt, the floor is yours.
Appreciate that. I realize you guys are running a little behind, so I will be brief. Supervisor Stroud, if you're good enough to pass some of those around. The first page that we're looking at here is just some facts relative to the EV industry, some insights, some forecasts as to what's going on out there. In the end of 2017, the there were 763,000 electric vehicles sold in the United States. Over a quarter of those were sold in 2017 alone, making it a record year for EV sales. In 2017, 41 unique EV models were sold in the U.S., 28% more model choices than 2016. By 2023, the number of EV models available will nearly double. EV drivers in the U.S. are currently able to access a network of more than 50,990 public and private charging outlets, up by over 34,000 in 2015. Estimates show that the United States will reach 1 million electric vehicles sold by 2020. By 2030, approximately 1 out of 4 new cars sold will be electric. As automations accelerate EV innovation, there will be EV models for every type of vehicle, including minivans, crossovers, SUVs, etc. The national sales of electric vehicle supply equipment units are expected to reach about 500,000 in 2020. That's part of the reason I'm here today. These are leave-behinds for you. Bloomberg News did a forecast, did a study. They realized that EVs will account for 54% of new car sales by 2040, not 35% as previously forecast. Statistically, probably some numbers that we didn't all realize. I know I did not until I started heading up this division within Apex Solar Power. For the record, Brett McDevitt, Apex Solar Power. I'm Director of Sales with the company. I'm here today to talk to you. A few months ago, about 90 days ago, I had a brief opportunity to meet with Administrator Moore, who indicated that this would be a program that I should run through this committee and through Chairman Beatty. The NYSERDA has a program which is in your packet there. It is the Charge Ready New York program, which is PON 3923. The implementation manual is here for your review and for you guys to take to look over. NYSERDA is currently funding $4,000 per port or $8,000 per station that is installed in New York State. In addition to that, and where this starts to get relatively exciting, National Grid has an electric vehicle charging station infrastructure program which stems back to settlement monies which were realized with the Volkswagen emissions settlement. We may remember that. Literally over $2 billion has been put into National Grid, NYSEG, Con Ed, utility companies throughout the United States to screen potential applicants as it relates to putting this equipment in. There are 2 criteria which have to be met under this National Grid program. Number 1 is what we call workplace charging. We need to have over 100 employees to qualify for the program. We no doubt have that. In addition to workplace charging, there is a segment of National Grid which is looking to center in on multifamily developments to have these installs occur. So I'm here today to look at a marriage between the National Grid monies as well as the NYSERDA monies, which when we bridge those together, we effectively arrive at a situation of which there is zero or very, very close to zero monies being due from the entity or entities which are putting these charging stations in. Warren County is unique in the sense that your municipal center sits very, very closely to some shopping outlets just up the road. In this industry, we call it dwell time. Dwell time is, I drove here from White Plains. I'm going shopping with my wife and my family. I'm going to plug my car in. I'm going to top off my battery. When I do that, I may actually go out and spend some money. I might go to lunch. I might go up to the outlets and buy a new shirt. monies that will ultimately circulate into merchants' hands, monies which might also have an impact in terms of sales tax revenue to the municipality. So the program is relatively simple in this one capacity. National Grid has a review committee that meets on a monthly basis. Myself and one of my counterparts dial into this meeting on projects which we have put in front of National Grid for review. Recently, we just got done completing the Saratoga YMCA, their 4 facilities. They took advantage of this program. I don't know definitively as to whether or not Warren County would be approved for these monies or not. I believe they will, but I do not know that until we have an opportunity to fill out this paperwork and simply say we're interested in learning whether or not National Grid will fund Warren County and EV charging stations. It is a 12-page front and back application here. It is basic, name, address, etc. Most of the information you folks put in, we put in the manufacturer and model numbers of what we would look to install here, and we hopefully get an affirmative response relative to the ability to put these stations in. I think this is an incredible opportunity for Warren County to realize the statistics which I just referenced here in terms of EV drivers, in terms of Tesla drivers, etc., to capitalize on, number one, an opportunity for the employees, the hardworking employees of Warren County who may buy an electric vehicle or a hybrid, who will come to work, who have an opportunity to charge that vehicle while they're working, as well as a public access component which would enable folks to charge a vehicle. I have a location. There's plenty of locations where these could go. I have one in mind before you asked. I see them right out front of the municipal center here in the lot which is closest to 9. We at that point would be able to come in, we would drop a new service entrance in, we would put in a new electrical service that would strictly dedicate itself to that bank of chargers, and it would have, again, the public access component. ChargePoint, which is the network that we're talking about here, is the world's largest network to identify where charging stations are located. There's an app that every EV driver has on their phone. It would tag this location. It would show that that unit is available. It would show that that unit is not available. In addition to that, before anyone asks, these are revenue grade meters, okay, which means this. If you want to turn them on, you can. If you want to charge for the electricity, you can charge per kilowatt. You could charge a flat rate of $5 or $10 for that driver, but we could turn this into an opportunity where we are not costing Warren County and or the taxpayers of Warren County any money whatsoever, because these are revenue grade. It's a point-of-sale terminal that takes a debit or credit card. EV drivers are used to paying for the juice. They're used to plugging in. When you go to Stewart's or Cumberland Farms and you put $40 into your vehicle, you're used to doing that. So this kind of flips that curve in terms of what people are used to out there. So it's a clean way of driving. We are showing that the market is moving towards this direction. Do I believe in the next 20 years everyone is going to drive an electric vehicle? Absolutely not. I don't believe that at all. Would I like them to, Claudia? The answer is yes. But they're not going to. So what we're going to do is we're going to provide this for the folks that do. The drop in the bucket, and it's moving things in the right direction. I know I'm crunched for time here. This presentation traditionally is about 45 minutes, but I'm just trying to tighten it up and say, look, what I want to hopefully accomplish today in talking to the committee is that we could look at this and say, look, let's go forward and apply for the money and see if we could get the money. If we can get the money, then we revisit, and then we dialogue relative to locations, relative to specific costs, relative to all of those various factors. Today is simply to say, folks, there's a lot of money out there that Saratoga County is looking at, that Washington County is looking at, that a whole host of municipalities, private businesses, hotels, casinos that we're working with. The money is finite. It is going very, very quickly in terms of how quickly people are applying for these dollars, and the bank of money is, it's not going to be there forever, okay, is what I'm stressing. So with that, Chairman Beatty, I'll turn it back to you.
Very good, Mr. McDevitt. That was an excellent presentation. Before I take questions or anything, personally, I think it behooves us to go forward as a county and at least see for the first step, which is, will National Grid even allow the funding? I mean, anything else is a moot point if we don't, if they say no, then it kind of stops the process. But so that's my personal opinion, that we go forward and fill out the paperwork to see if National Grid will even count us as a potential customer. Now I'll open it up to the committee for any questions for Mr. McDevitt.
Mr. Stroh.
Mr. Stroud?
Yeah, thank you. I agree that we should go in this direction. But use of the National Grid is limited to workplace and multi-unit dwelling. But NYSERDA offers free public site workplace sites and multi-unit dwelling. So National Grid won't sponsor public sites?
National Grid, Supervisor Stroud, is looking to segment two particular categories for implementation in workplace and in multifamily. The workplace / multifamily designation has a requirement which says that the charging units have to be afforded in a public capacity, meaning we couldn't put these behind a big gate and lock it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They have to be made available to the public.
So, all right, so there is some confusion over workplace versus public. Even the workplace has to be public.
The workplace has to have a public component to it. Yes, it does.
So it
Yep.
seems that National Grid and NYSERDA are pretty much an alliance, only NYSERDA offers it differently. They say public site, workplace site, multi-unit dwelling site. All right. The other question that I have.
Go ahead, John.
Workplace site, which I'm assuming is going to be the same as public site, has to be networked.
Yes.
The multi-unit dwelling site will be either networked or non-networked. Can you explain networked versus non-networked?
Networked is when we install the units, Supervisor Stroud, when we install the units, we have the ability of turning these on from a networking capacity. What it's meaning is that drivers that have apps on their phones, okay, with ChargePoint, or Tesla drivers that currently have a screen which brings up charging stations, have the ability to recognize those. I don't know of any specific install or project we have worked on or are working on of which we do not have network stations which are going out into the marketplace, okay, where in fact the stations are not networking.
All networked?
They should all be networked. There's no reason not to have them networked, and I can't think of, again, an example of why businesses, for example, hotels, the Sagamore, the Inn at Hurlewest that we installed last week actually, they want these to show up because if you're a hotel owner or you're a restaurateur or you are XYZ business, you want people to charge their vehicle, and maybe they'll actually spend a couple of bucks, you know, having a bite to eat or, you know, buying some clothing, etc. So I don't know of any reason why they would not be networked, and I don't have any example of which they haven't been networked.
So the bottom line, the network means that it is being cast out to the community so that they know that this exists.
That's correct. Exactly correct. And that's done, Supervisor Stroud, via a ChargePoint app, which all drivers can download. It's a free app. Or you could do it on your laptop. You could do it on your, whatever your device might be. That is networked to where you can actually see a screen and it says, okay, the Exit 19 Home to Suites has a charging station the Adirondack Mountain Club at exit 21 as a charging station, in Earl West, Sagamore, Warren County, wherever, Saratoga, YMCA, etc. Yep.
Ms. Bramer?
Thank you. Big shocker, I totally think we should do this. And I think we should even put our own money behind it if we don't get the funds, but I certainly think we should move forward with filling out the application and trying to get the money. How many stations do you think that we should have?
Well, that's a loaded question, Supervisor Bramer. What I would suggest is what I'm currently working on with another municipality, which is 10 stations. Okay.
That's 2, right? Each station has 2 ports.
That's so 10, to be clear, 10 actually gives you 20 ports. Okay, so 5 stations, they're dual ports. So picture you're pulling into a parking space and the unit is in front of you. Driver to the left can plug in, driver to the right can plug in. So 5 stations gives you 10 ports, 10 stations gives you 20 ports. Okay.
Thank you.
How many do I recommend? I would say in a situation like this, based upon the amount of employees, and then additionally based upon the demographic of all of the traffic off of 87 right here, I would say that minimally 5, but I would recommend 10, and that I do believe they're going to be used. Okay? And when we have a subsidy, when we have money, when we have a program that is not going to be here forever, I say my humble recommendation is to lock and load relative to that funding.
Mr. Hajos, you had a question?
I just had a very quick one. So we here at the county would fill out the application for National Grid and NYSERDA, or just a one application?
Kevin, that's a good question. So National Grid application is what you have in your hand, and that would be filled out on paper. The NYSERDA portion of it is actually a link that we send to you that you can actually access. It's right in here, and those instructions are in here. So one is electronic, and what the NYSERDA portal is doing is you're going in, you're identifying, name, address, phone number, contact info. It then is going to, within 5 business days, it's going to give you what they describe as login credentials, which is name and password. At that point, you're kind of in, so to speak, and then it gives you further instructions how to proceed from that point. So, excellent question. One is literally just filling this out, and then I/Apex, we take it from there, and the other is going into NYSERDA's portal and electronically transmitting that information.
Just a follow-up to that, and this may be more to the county attorney, is if we receive this funding, does this doesn't really automatically go to Apex? Does this not have to go out to bid to put those stations in?
I would strongly recommend.
I would believe that it does. I would want to
I'm
look
just-
it
I
up,
just
but
want that
I
question
very
clarified.
strongly imagine that it would have to go out to bid.
So this is on a state contract, just so we realize it has already gone through charge point. So the dollar figures that are attributed to this are already done on state contract. We're working with another municipality. I certainly defer to council. Let me just first say that, to do, and however it resolves, if it's a bid process, it's a bid process. That's fine. But we are working in situations of which that has not historically been the case, based upon already being on state contract.
All right, is it the will of the committee?
Sir, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I know, but for the sake of time, I'm going to close this down here. I'll let you, Mr. Well, have the last question.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. And we've talked about contracts before, and how sometimes we
we're
get
just
ourselves caught
going
into
to the
things.
first step now,
So
Mr.
just a
Weil.
couple of questions, if you don't mind. I think I've got 4 or 5 of them. There's a question about compatibility between EV vehicles. What about the service life of the equipment? How long does the service life of the equipment last? What are the replacement costs? What are the maintenance costs? Those are all things that we need to factor in, and I also agree, if we do this, are we locking in with Apex, or can we go out and look for another supplier that would maybe give us a better deal, right? Because you said that it may not cost us anything, it might cost us minimally. So, right, I'm looking for
Well, that
someone
was-
who might
that-
do this and
that
say it
was-
doesn't cost us anything.
Okay. So I caught, I think, 4 specific questions. What I would say is my initial coming here today was to share the information with you, to share the program with you, to show you that this money is out there. Relative to warranties, relative to compatibility, et cetera, I will tell you I'm happy to ramble on for 30 minutes here with those questions, but I think that it may be something of which today's focus might just be on looking to secure money. As it relates to going out to bid, of course you can go out
Yeah,
to bid.
Mr. McDivitt, I'm going to stop right there. The fact of the matter is, we can get into a lot of detail on the contracts. This is simply, should we request that we are eligible for the funding? That's all this is today. We will go into detail, Mr. Wild, before we sign any contracts, before anything else goes further. This is not the day and the time to do that. This is simply a informational overview and to whether we should go forward to at least see if we even qualify. That's all this is today. We will go into the down and dirty on the contracts, Mr. Weil, I assure you, once we even see if we qualify. One last question, Mr. Sokol.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. It really wasn't a question, it was just a comment, and many moons ago, those who had the vision of this Warren County Municipal Center to build it the size that it is, and to actually accommodate what we have today, you know, I've been on the board long enough where we have had the property across the street for sale. If our vision in the future, looking many moons down the road, is to eventually get into this electric car or these many stations that we're going to be adding, and what's wrong with potentially looking at the property across the road for something like this?
And that's a great question, and if we even get past the first step, and if the committee wants to go to the next steps, and we can then discuss where to have them located with Mr. McDivitt or anyone else we choose to bring in. So those are all, there's 100 questions here we could add. You're right, we could speak on this all afternoon. But this, I think the committee's in agreement. We go step one, which is we apply for the funding. Mr. Hajos will keynote that, and then after we know whether we even are eligible, then we go to step two.
Just in closing, Mr. Beatty, for Mr. Wild's purposes, the units are 100% compatible with all electric vehicles, hybrid as well as electric. That means Tesla drivers at one time, it was a different adapter. So you're asking a very, very good question. They are now at a point where that adapter is giving 100% universal features to all electric vehicles in the marketplace.
Thank you, Ms. McDivitt.
Thank you, Mr. Beatty.
We're now going to go to the airport agenda.
I gotta go get some candy.
Go get some candy, Ms. Bramer. Make sure you get one for everybody.
Good idea.
There's no vote on this. We're just allowing, the committee's already given their will that they would like to go to the next step and have Mr. Hajos at least see if we qualify for funding.
No, the next step would be to get the Board of Supervisors permission to apply for a grant, because you can't apply for a grant unless you get the Board of Supervisors permission to do so.
Well, no, I don't believe so in this case. I believe all we're doing, no, I don't.
We're just filling out an application, aren't we?
Yes, that's all we're doing is filling out an application. We don't need the Board of Supervisors approval. That's all we're doing is filling out an application to see if we qualify. There's no grant funding that we're asking for. Okay, Mr. Hajos, go ahead.
I'm actually going to turn it over to Don DeGraw, our airport manager, to talk about the action agenda items.
Okay, Mr. DeGraw?
First resolution request is to enter an agreement with CNS Engineers for administrative help to acquire 2 new airport snow plows for a contract amount of $4,800, which is AIP eligible for a total local share of $240.
Anyone offering up to a motion to pass that to Mr. Loeb? Second? Mr. Strau? All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Next resolution request is for out-of-state travel for me to go to Hershey this year to the Northeast Conference AAE annual conference for $1,244.
Motion by Mr. Simpson, second by Ms. Bramer. Any discussion?
I just have a brief one. Hershey is a competitor from us from a tourism standpoint. Can we work on getting the next meeting up here?
I'll mention
I
it.
was gonna say, bring me some candy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Passed.
The next one is a resolution request to approve a contract with Ideal Dairy Farms to enter in a 10-year contract for a land lease for agricultural use on the airport. You go into page number 8, you see the bid tab sheet. What they're proposing is a 10-year contract with a 5-year out.
First 3 years would be no charge, and then after that, they pay $20 an acre per year. We have 200 acres, so it'll be about $4,000 a year after that. In 2018, they did have a contract with us previously, and they were paying $80 an acre for corn and $50 an acre for hay. So here they're looking, again, first 3 years, no charge, and then after that, $20 an acre. There were no other bidders on this, and staff is recommending approval.
Do I have a motion for that? Ms. Frazier, second. Mr. Simpson, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Question, Mr. Chairman?
Discussion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wonder, since we have dealt in the past with Ideal, with the same lands, why all of a sudden they're saying, oh, you've got public resources, we want to have those rates. Why wouldn't we accept that?
The setback was for a couple reasons.
Why would we accept that?
One, they're the only bidder.
Yeah.
That's the first. The second was, the reason for them lowering their prices, well, the last lease agreement that they had, I believe, was it 3 years or 5 years? I believe it was a 3-year.
It was multiple
years.
Yes.
And they increased it over the years, but they soon realized a lot of the property that they wanted to use out there, they needed to really do some work on. While it's very fertile soil out there, they have to add, whether it's fertilizer or anything else to the soil to get a better crop. We had offered up certain pieces or certain parcels out there when they started to run their equipment out there, they significantly damaged their equipment. They didn't come back to us looking for us to foot the bill. They leased the property from us, and even though most of their equipment has metal detectors on it, they did a significant amount of damage to their equipment, whether it be metal in the ground in some of the areas that they use, their pen sections that got caught up in their balers. On the upper property where they plow for the corn, they damaged a lot of their plow equipment up there. So again, this was the only bidder. We don't need to lease it to anybody, but it is a revenue coming in. Not significant, but it's still a revenue that's coming into the airport.
It's zero revenue.
Eventually, it will be a revenue.
Mr. Simpson?
I was going to say, in the past, we have discussed this. It was an issue that they needed to amend the soils to make it worth their while, that it wasn't producing in their favor. So I agree with all this.
Did we call the vote?
You better
No,
vote
we're
again.
still
You
discussing.
didn't really...
Yes, you have voted.
We voted, I thought.
We already voted on it. Okay. All right.
And for the record, I vote for
Mr. Loeb is a no. Okay, personally, I think having some revenue against no revenue is a positive, but that's my opinion.
Just 5 years or 10 years?
It's a 5-year. We would do it as a 5-year. We originally put out the bid for 10 years. They actually came back and said they all wanted to go for 5 years. So we figured 5-year with a 5-year renewal.
Okay, number 5, Don?
Last month, I discussed with the committee the situation we have with the state grant to construct 2 10-bay hangars. And we talked about the state grant being lacking in funds because of the price of steel increase. So there was some direction to put together a spreadsheet and kind of look at the numbers from that. If you go to page 10, packet here, put together a little spreadsheet. It's kind of a 50-year spreadsheet, but I'd have you focus on 2043, which is 25 years out, which is probably the life of a fabric building. And what I did here, if you look at building number 1 is the all metal, so our revenue would be about $1 million, and building number 2 is the metal fabric. It really would be $1.9 million, but at that point we'd have to replace it, and engineers estimate about $1 million to replace. So after looking at this, I think the direction we should go, or my recommendation, is that we build as many hangars, bays as we can with all metal, because that's a 50-year life, and then in the future try to fill out the rest of the area with a state grant, another state grant for the remainder. We don't know exactly how many we can build, probably 10. But we don't want to be in a situation in 25 years where we're coming to the committee asking for $1 million cash out of the budget. Probably not going to happen. So I think we're better off with all metal.
Kevin, did you want to add something?
This discussion was brought up in the board meeting by Supervisor Loeb, and I think I confirmed with him that we will be going with just as many hangars as we can get with the state grant now, and then we'd go back and look for some more funding.
Any
I'll
questions?
make that motion. So we-
You make that motion?
We go on the
Is there a
second.
second by Mr. Stroud?
Well, we're gonna go back.
We go with the metal.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion? Brad?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned with, always saying it's due to the price of metal. I know metal went up, with the trade tariffs and that, but, I mean, a 50% increase, I do not believe it was that high. I believe the figures that were brought in many years ago that we, when we applied for the grant, was brought in way underfigured at the beginning. So, I mean, just to put it on the record as saying that, due to the increase, yes, metal with the tariff and everything has increased, the metal building has gone up, but, so really reapplying for the grant and pushing forward to get caught up with the current prices is something I feel that we should do.
Okay, thank you. Did I call the vote yet? So I'm going to call the vote now. All in favor,
Aye.
say aye.
Aye.
Man, this is running late. I got to have my lunch, guys. I'm losing it if I don't get my lunch. Diabetics need their lunch, otherwise it gets a little hazy. Okay, number 5.
Just some items here, quick items for the committee's information. We had our annual FAR Part 139 safety inspection in January. The airport did very well. We had a couple of small write-ups, but overall we did very, very well. We do have a pre-application in for the 2 snow plows from the FAA, and we're looking to get 2 new snow plows to replace our existing plows, which are 2004, and that's for $500,000. There's a new FAA program out which is 100% reimbursable, and we're looking to get a new snow removal building out of that. We applied for $3.5 million, so we're hopeful that that's going to happen. That'll be a 4-bay, 10,000 square foot building. And the 5-year airport consultant contracts are up, and we have an RFQ out right now. The bid opening is March 7th, so probably next month we'll have more to report on that. And that's all.
How many consultants are we looking for, Mr. DeGraw?
Up to 4 possibly.
Oh, very good. Okay, thank you. Kevin?
I just have one more thing to add in for the committee. I got a notification yesterday from the governor's office that we had applied for a grant for not snow removal equipment, a new sweeper. The sweeper that we have at the county airport right now is 35 years old.
1987.
Okay. 32 years old, and it's time for a new one. So we just received word from the governor's office yesterday, which he actually put out $23 million in state funding for airports around New York State, and we won't see possibly the grant probably till September, but we were approved to move forward with the application that we put in for the sweeper for $576,000, and there is a county local match to that as well.
Discussion, Mr. Sokol?
No, thank you, Mr. I just want to say, Don, it's been a pleasure having you as our airport manager, and Kevin, already the fine stuff that you do. I'm just really impressed with you guys, so thank you very much.
Privilege of the floor. There's anybody left in the room? There doesn't seem to be a lot left. We've driven them all out. Mr. McGowan has a comment.
I just want to honorably second what Matt just said, so.
Okay.
And really for both up there and the team, the feedback coming back, they do an awesome job up there and all around. So.
I think we've definitely taken a step upward, that's for darn sure.
Don't blow it, guys.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? 3 motions, 4 motions. Do I have a second? Okay, second by Mr. Loeb.
I said before, Ron put me on a pedestal. There's only one way for me to go.
All
and that's
adjourned.
down.